Writing equations from graphs. We're going to first look at the features of lines on graphs. Then we'll do some examples. Okay, so the first part is we need to remember some things about lines on a graph. The first thing we want to look at is where's the y-intercept, and then let's deal with the slope, and finally we'll write an equation from that information. So as we look at it, we're finding where does the line cross the y-axis. Remember, the y-axis goes straight up and down, and it's where the line crosses this point right here. Then the next thing we need to do is find another area where the grid crosses the line, and we're going to look at this point. This will help us find both the intercept and the slope. So you notice the red part here is located at 0, 2. That says the intercept is crossing at the point x equals 0, y equals 2, also known here as where the y-intercept is going to be. The next part we're going to look at is the slope. We want to know the change in x and the change in y. We use this to find the slope. And for the equation, we'll have m equals change in y and change of x. So in this case, the change in y is 3. We're adding 3 as we come up. And the change of x is plus 1. Then finally, we use this information and the equation in the slope-intercept form of y equals mx plus or minus b. Let's look at some examples of this and finish this equation. So here's the first example. So we already identified where the points crossed, and sometimes in your homework we may have already identified various places where it's going to cross. So we'll just use a pencil here and find out what is the change in x and the change in y. Notice we start at this point, then we have change of x is plus 1, and the change in y is plus 3. So then the slope is going to be the change in y, 3, over the change of x. And so our slope is going to be this 3 over 1. Simplified becomes just 3. So we'll write it over here to help us see it. We identified on the previous slide where the line crossed the axis is right here. And it's at the location 0, 2. It goes over 0 places in the x direction, and it comes up 2. And so b is this value here, the y value. It's at 2. Now it just comes down to putting this into the equation. So we start with y equals m, which is 3x plus or minus, and because this b is a positive number, we'll use plus 2. The equation that describes this line is y equals 3x plus 2. Let's look at 2 more examples. In this example, we again, this time I'll go ahead and find the y-intercept is here. It's kind of a hard color to read, but we'll do it this way. And it is located at 0 and negative, fly's getting me, a negative 2. And so RB, based on this formula, is going to give us b equals negative 2. Okay, now clear some space here. So now we'll go and identify the slope. So we're going to start again at this point we've already identified. We'll work along the line until we get to another part Sorry, that's Mrs. Runyon. She's just joining me for a minute while we finish this video. Okay, so we identify another part where the line crosses the grid, do you see? And so we're going to look at the difference of these two lines. And it doesn't really matter which point we're going to go with. You can play with that. You'll get the same kind of answer, but we'll just play with it here. So the change here in the x direction is +2, and the change in the y direction is +3. And so the slope is going to be, the slope, which we represent as m, will be the change in y, which is 3, over the change of x, which is 2. And so over here, the slope is going to be 3/2 in this case. Now we use all of this information to build the equation. So now we have y equals the slope, which is 3/2. Notice we just replaced the m with 3/2. Then there's x. And this is plus or minus. Now this time, because we have a negative here, we'll use a -2, you see. And that's how we build the equation for this one. The last example is this one here. So this time we'll first identify where does the line cross the axis. It's right here, located at, let's check that out. So it's right here. It's located at 0 in the x direction and 1 high. So we can use this information to know what b is. B, in this case, is 1. Then we'll do the change in y. Well, let's see, we need to find a spot, don't we? So let's go ahead and find a spot along the line. There's one right here, do you see? There's also one over here. And we can go along the line, but we really only need one other point to find it. So let's go the change in x. Go ahead this way. The change of x is +3. And the change in y is -1. Just to show you that yes, it will really work from the other direction if we start at this point. And this time we go down 1 and right 2. Excuse me, it's 3, isn't it? 3. It'll still work. So we do the change in y over the change in x. Simplify this value, it becomes a -3. So this is m. Now we'll go ahead and plug it in here at the bottom. So y equals -3 x. This b is positive, so we'll use plus for positive 1. There's our equation for the line.